Hello, this is a video about the Trinity. If the church came to St. Nicholas today, and if St. Nicholas was able to speak today, and he had insights, and they say, how are we going to defend our takes on the Trinity? Which they always say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And then when women say, well, that leaves out women. That's partially because all identity ground locations are collusion with something, a method. We'll show you this, but holy stands for high omega, longs Y. And ghost stands for God's high omega sees tell / telling. This is about the identity of engineering before while being the value of the electrical engineering of the human fact-treatment nature. This is where and how physics, metaphysics, and identity are bound. Even the identity of the species. Note, with other species here. Only the extent of it is debatable. Who debates it? They have to self-value criminally foreign influence premises treatment, sequence treatment, physical delusions. To understand what modern religions are about in Allah's name. L stands for longing. The Trinity is about 3 identities of longing. That are about, and where and how. One identity of volume is only increasing. Only the extent of it is debatable. And who debates it is recorded self-valuing, physical delusions, criminal foreign influences, premises treatments, rules, racketeering self-value, for example, time treatments, all this stuff at once, not by accident. Then that has to hide life progressions from that. Those same people that run the prisons tied to the interbranch, not by accident. People on and off the state judicial branch offices, on and off the state prison offices. Those are people that create instances where they're standing next to you, or where they walk in when someone's standing next to you, because they're making fake sides of correlation nature. They're lying about sequence nature that came before that. They're self-valuing collusion with predicate acts with AT&T on and off Two-Rod Highway with the military. People associated with the Dillon family, associated with attaching little kids to forced roles with, having to give affidavits in relationship to officers asking people to attach people to fake words, fake locations, collusion with them with sequence shifts, criminal uses of other people's names, criminal uses of everyone forced to speak he said, she said, hearsay, where the courts were involved with it, with the other nations, and with their sources, and no one's putting anything on paper. That stuff is on paper. But the courts are also further criminally involved then and now. And uses of the worst in criminal incompetence of lawyers, inclusion with this originally instilled, and with increasingly self-value, tactically criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents in relationship to this. So it's not just about the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. The church had to ask St. Nicholas for help on how they were going to defend themselves as syntax nature, fact, treatment nature, regarding questions, for example, regarding their needs to defend their positions regarding the nature of the law. Now think about how this method, this preaching method from some ancient times, knew that nature would continue to demonstrate negative value, nature progressions, action, natures, while the human fact-sheeping nature continued to deny the all the way syntactically, fact-sheeping nature-wise, increasingly. We are now systems tactically ulterior from that one that is native pure. Now the ancients would have also taught the Allahs of where we could discern this. So it's still not that in identity of invisible, but still discernible. It's just a part of it. And there are exceptions to the spelling of it, even in demonstration of this. That's why there's not one religious book. And in relationship to how they have so much power, religions, when they can't even answer questions about the law by themselves, it's because of how our identity, the ground locations are being and having been used. It is because of how memory works. Actually. How consciousness works. Actually. More importantly. So the Trinity is about a science that has prevented the quality of fact-sheeping nature. And offensively, it is stacking and has stacked things into databases with medical families, people associated with them, sociologists, psychologists, and people that work with the students, counselors, people that all database relationships simultaneously, and exploitations of that are perfected, and this is discernible. So we have the identity of campuses that didn't want anything to do with it. All exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of it. There are exceptions in our exception natures, like at the Morrow family. Like I associated with the ILO family, is one of the ones at Trinity College involved with predicate acts. On Trinity College and with the fire department next to it. And with places on Broad Street associated with the intelligence community, overt criminal enterprises. Intelligence community meaning judges and their extended family members and themselves too. This also uses extended family members, neighbors, immediate family members, where and how there are methods, by a method that has its self-value, where everyone's attached to fake words, fake locations. Even online, even though other is recorded, they just replace it. And that's why and how the social media are manifest the way they are. They force them into need to hide their life progression, their roles and uses of their kids. They're over there pretending politics is just politics. Individually grouped and together, sick into a branch. They need to hide life progressions. They used other people's names. Big world, small world. They taking further and further collusion with instances. So this Joe Aiello right next to a park where a little path comes out. Right when I was jogging, they're just standing right there, and with his face on, I had no communications with them. And then this is tied to on Facebook. Joe Aiello and that former Mayor Gold are involved with people from the Britain Spirit Court with rape threats and other passion crimes inside and outside the court that are inseparable from their roles with predicate acts, with locations, and with campuses leading up to that in that context and since. So now they're lying to the Attorney General. They're hiding this. There's an Oliveri family that lives at the end of the I think the Putnam Bridge. I don't know whether it's the hard one. The bridge that goes from Glastonbury to Wethersfield, and then it goes to Route 3, and it goes right by the State of Connecticut Judicial Branch offices. And there's a little road in front of them too. And right there's a Fianza family. And is associated also with a black guy that was a kid. I didn't know his name, but he was recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed, involved with them creating instances with judges, extended family members, and with as one's roles with child abuses of little girls and boys, and then playing he said, she said games where they bring the sense and sensibilities and nervous systems of people in like that. Strangers. Complete strangers. Strangers that people only know through instances where they're being used criminally. Because these are people involved with, like, New Haven, on and off the New Haven FBI, on and off the clubs near there. These are people involved with the uses of what makes people feel good or bad to keep that employed by the devil, by the predicate acts delivery system method, not the devil. We're not going to call it that because that's only one's way of speaking about it, which is incomplete. Because all the stewards of the sciences are abridged, and their self-valued roles with that, and with the exploitation of it. Per a method where that is not true, even that is employed to screen it. So we have to address how they have recorded since before the Trade Center attack and since online, Connecticut Interbranch has been fabricating audio and video. And with Connecticut media, because they had a role with predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University since they were students there. On and off Trinity College since they were students there. On and off UConn since they were students there. On and off other Middlesex Community College since they were students there. People involved with former Director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. People involved with his federal criminal code defendants. Further recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the creation of criminally foreign influenced instances on campuses, off campuses, with phones methods, with phone predicate acts method roles, criminal incestuous roles, styles, methods like separating subjects, pretending not to understand people, while switching names, forging names, roles, fabricating, and actually fabricating audio and video, and roles self-valuing it. That is what is behind. So these are also the people that are recorded sickly, distinctly. I did things wrong with behavior online regarding like a little bit aggressive with one of the Hartford campuses, whatever like that. That's because you can't record the police. You can't record the courts. But they're involved with recording themselves with the people from Wethersfield Interbranch that are also involved intercampuses and intra-campuses with predicate acts and wrongdoing in conjunction with and as the value. Also, of their instances creation. A whole bunch of people that came up to me, and right before that, everyone's always lying before the sequence about that. So it's a whole bunch of people that I don't know at all. So I have to use their names. If I don't use it, and then you sound like some jerk using everyone's name. If you don't use your name, you got hurt in other ways. And when if you react pretending like you believe it's real, when they put theater, like with the fake sites of correlation nature, with the boys and girls, they do it. Where they have the boys and girls involved with identity thefts and frauds, lying about other boys and girls. In that way, where there's no way to counter it, because they're pretending to be legitimately testing people or whatever. In other words, it's mixed with the interbranches, motivations, criminally foreign influence by the same thing, with the overt criminal enterprises with the same kids, private ones, wire crime acts and methods, sequence shift roles, uses of identity, ground locations. These are houses next to campuses and the locations next to it. We're on and off it. That were used by a method that uses the identity of the campuses that way, because they're going to defend their identity. Where and how we all want to be positive, we want to speak good about the places we are. So there's a difference between being a theater that's going to need to be putting advertisement to sell a product, and pretending that it is negative, to point out real negative about a campus. Real negative is an element that is used to discern, that has to be used to discern another invisible but still discernible identity of positive. Negative, like slavery, if you want to isolate that context, part of it, torture, extortion. So, the Trinity is what temporary positive can't help but be. And so temporary / lasting can't help but be a Trinity. Manifest because of the increasing value of one identity of volume, the way it is increasing. It was first most probably all clear. We'll come to the story of it. It was most probable, but believe the way the ancients would tell about the history before sciences became criminally foreign influenced. So there are uses of the identity of the ground, theater positive treatments. If you're a religious leader, you're not supposed to pretend passions and emotions. You're not supposed to pretend to be about calm and stability. You're not supposed to pretend to be about to exploit and to maintain, not used, not protracted. The short words, where and how correlation and discorrelation are being lied about simultaneously, and simultaneously insidiously, and simultaneously overtly. So when I use the slash, the solidus, the solidus, SOLIDUS, I learned that on Wikipedia. I will learn that also about St. Nicholas on Wikipedia.com. But I'm adding to it. But I'm using correlation, nature. I'm using evidence. How it is recorded, self-valued, being self-valued, and having been self-valued is also being valued more and more because of how it is being valued. How they were blaming other things on others and selves for the real cause of negative value nature progression. How they were pretending not to be negative value nature progressions. How they are pretending not to be negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. So there was also police that confessed, recorded, people associated with statistics, teaching, and with Central Connecticut State University. People associated with the DeMauro family are also involved with these Mendez police, attaching me to fabricated audio and video on the Wethersfield Police Department as an adult, as their roles also with predicate acts and with wrongdoing tied to those predicate acts, and to their roles with them before that, on and off Fox Connecticut News, and with the people that are involved with foreign and domestic military, and as the people involved also, Wethersfield Police, tied to Martin de Mendez family that's been involved, also with those judges' extended family members, with identity theft, fraud, attaching people to fake locations, attaching people to fake audio and video, their roles with investigations, investigators, overt criminal enterprises, the undercover pretending to be against that, even how they have acting places. They have identities that have to act. There are proofs. Now, even if that is not true, there are needs for us to take counter positions to the involvements of those identity ground locations that teach actors anyway, with investigators that are undercover anyway, associated with that house on the corner of Church Street and Main Street, for example. And then they pretend that you know the words. So respond for other houses on that street also involved with predicate acts on my street. Wire crime, mail crimes, and Wethersfield Police and the judges and prosecutors criminally involved. Now, that's not alone. Overt criminal enterprises, the Witness Protection Program, also has ties to my street. Also has roles with the people with the body dumping spot, with the Dillon family, with ties to my street, houses on Fairlane, involved with them with predicate acts, and with people further on the Child Defender Registry, further on a Principal Child Defenders Registry campus over the past 4 or 5 years. And I've been asking since before that. See, that's how that stuff they piled in. The same people that enter cities are recorded involved with predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University and on and off Trinity College, and with individual leaderships of it. But this is also maintained for how they had other countries involved with predicate acts growing up, with the creation of instances where the courts and police forms were keeping them as predicate acts. Their roles with falsified police reports in methods of identity thefts and frauds missed. But they exist. For example, with locations near Fox News, they're pretending this is personal, rather than just fixing the fake news that WFSB attached me to, rather than just communicating with me in writing, because they're involved with locations, crime methods, in cases, and in courts, and with depositions, and with their own location distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously already having been. So they're using the method now of pretending they don't understand people. People they attach to fake words, fake locations, fake sequence relationships. Now the courts are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they use their location to prevent people anything written to counter. And while simultaneously pretending and having pretended other. Now those are the same courts, since before they had anything to do with that, they had roles with, they were using that to hide their roles with locations used criminally, off-campus locations, all along routes going to the campuses, the locations next to the campuses, the same ones with ties to them, with roles with the connected predicate acts. The time has gone by, but I asked since the World Trade Center attack for a response. I didn't know at the time former director of the FBI was a co-defendant in the Hartford courts, associated with he was with depositions in the Hartford courts of him and his co-defendants that are also, but I found out after they were involved with the courts and the police firms I caught with predicate acts with locations, intercities, West Hartford, New Britain, Wethersfield. And that was through time since before that. Just more and more names they keep stacking in. There are houses next to a web school and people associated with the leadership of web school, all the schools that are further recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with a whole bunch of medical families, foreign and domestic, of various natures involved with drug crimes and pretending to be against it, sequence shifts, uses of sexual crime methods where they have the complete possession of the boys and girls. Now as adults, as state police, as FBI, as positions with the courts, still incapable of defending themselves and pretending that integrity is about acting like an adult, while they are simultaneously incapable of acting as an adult, and or nor of speaking for innocence or speaking for any age of fact-achieving nature. Sickly, distinctly, they cannot. The same ones are simultaneously involved with predicate acts on off elderly homes. And this method /S is preventing me and anyone of integrity from entering a business if they don't ignore things, if they don't self-value, exploitation of that which they're aware of, that they're going to have to pretend to be against anyway. People don't care anyway. That's what is trained through abridged sciences. So the Burroughs book will be funded. The building of it and the orchestration of it and more will be brought manifest through the pamphleteers, a business. We need help. But we need help that's not just because we need help we'll fund it. We'll 100%. Who will fund what they'll be forced to be 100% owned by the so I'd like to do it myself. I don't have the liquid assets right now for this. But we're going to do this. That's how we could do it. Now, that's how I'll fund it. It'll be increasing the amount of things, the amount of games. For example, we'll make a game called For Example. So the pamphleteers will talk about how the game is developing. It'll be advertising the game. No one's going to make money from the game, but reliefs are going to be brought through the game. So people are going to gain value. But they're going to do it with and as another identity, as a plan that other states can use at the same time. But this plan claims bottoms everywhere. And you can't do that as science without claiming most forsaken, way below that. You know, bottoms where you can't reach, you know, the point where you could even fathom. The integrity. Speaking. It never spoke in relationship to those things, those elements of correlation and of discorrelation. Prevented the short words of our opinions and convictions, where and how we could use an identity of truth that is beyond the identity of truth that they allow used, where and how all locations, areas, and states of every modern nation are self-valued uses of truths for lies and / lies for truth simultaneously. They are simultaneously Wethersfield police with the other police forms. They use methods of separating subjects. Well, I don't know about that. Let's focus on this. While they are fabricating audio and video with the stuff they pretend they don't know about. And when they said they're trying to focus on something, that's the whole thing. They're putting fake conversations, and then they're describing people's conversations with their physical delusions, with overall making allegations. In other words, these are also, in other words, they're saying, well, that's not an allegation. If a doctor said you have a mental diagnosis, they're physical delusions, raw anyway. Say a doctor legitimately. I never had a conversation with this Leahy guy. He's also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with sequence shifts, and with predicate acts with a Judge Killian, and with other doctors forging, switching names, and with drugs, crimes, and medicine crimes, with their patients and criminals, including child sex offenders, associated further with Wethersfield town offices, and with the principal child sex offenders campus, and with related identity of the ground locations, like the on-off two-ride town line drive, on-off two-ride highway, but on-off two-ride, on-off town line drive. A whole bunch of people involved with identity thefts, frauds. People walk up to you, pretend it's a legitimate creation of an instance, but it's not. Also, where they have Russians involved and how they have Russians involved with locations on corners through time, with names, and with people's uses of other people's names, with other corners on that street, involved with the predicate acts, with the weather, Connecticut media, on off the park through time, and with people that created instances where there are paths into the park, where they lied about sequence leading up to what brought me when they saw me for moments, for not long. And once, when I was a kid, there was a Mike Kerr, a Ray Colo, and a Joe DeMauro. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed a whole bunch of ways. They had made a whole bunch of recorded, confessed, demonstrated a whole bunch of ways. That was when I was in middle school or high school. I think middle school. Middle school. Because I never saw that kid in high school. I barely knew him then. These are people that created instances where they lied about sequence shift, and they made all these confessions at once. Then they have conversations with other people behind your back in other classes, and with judges and prosecutors, attaching people. They're making people go to the office for things, and they're leaving out what happened. They're trying to make what happened different. These are also the people that are sequence shifts and violence roles with black families that are involved with identity thefts and frauds. And then when you try to react to that, because they use the different black kids differently, but they're using that their identity is black, and they're going to claim that. In other words, when people fight with them, or people have passions and emotions they have to describe, they're going to describe it in relationship to racism. That is maintained. But it is also maintained by how they're being involved. It is maintained both by evil against them, actually, because everyone. But it's using them as fake sides of correlation nature. That was an instance. They were involved with instances on my campuses with the people who were involved with the parks. There's a park in Newington. There's a park that is involved with the people on the two-ride highway, involved with the kids programs with the parks in Wethersfield that are involved with predicate acts, with the creation of instances where and how they have mayors, and where they have people tied to Washington, D.C. and the World Trade Center. They have relationships to all locations, areas, and states, where and how it is being and having been exploited. The identity of live aggression that they are only capable of being when they open their mouths pretending to be capable of speaking for positive or negative or truth or integrity or someone's name as value legitimately. And that's because they are victim predators of this method originally instilled. So we have to have mandated law follow outside of courts. New York City, that people stacking, that is proof that through to correlation, that through time mandated law was prevented by people pretending other for a breaching method. When they simultaneously bring up the slavery and they don't bring up that breaching method, you watch. Look close at what is called premises. What is called, what means what. Relatively. See, we have the identity of relativity, offensively, tactically forsaken, and self-value forsaken, that being and having been exploited, but way worse tied to that. So follow mandated law. Don't pretend you don't understand me. Follow mandated law. Let's focus on the rape threats and the sequence shifts with the Facebook pages, and then lying about my behavior when I brought up other campuses. And in other words, they use any kind of truth or behavior that where they could get someone to say, oh, I was wrong, or like to make it what it isn't. And they leave out the rest of the recorded, confessed, and demonstrated roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. With those locations, I did that too, because they have to hide passions and emotions. And I'm not going to be a teacher who furthers that crap, who furthers that, which I'm not going to stay aware of that. I'll be a standing criminal insidious in its nature. We're going to end here, because you're going to have someone speak for the law. I don't have to be a lawyer. I'm going to use as evidence how the lawyers themselves are delusions raw, criminally foreign influence methods, whole predicate action delivery system methods, and styles pretending other, natures pretending other, motivations actually recorded. Follow mandated law. Don't pretend we had an illegitimate election. Right through administrations, clear as day. The identity of each president is forced to collusion with them while being hurt by them. If they don't want to admit it, let me do it for that, you guys. I'll do it showing you how the foreign nations, like involved with this the DeMora family. A number of them have the name Joe DeMora Intercities that are involved with predicate acts on and off CCSU and on off Trinity College. Also with how they have the sense and sensibilities of black and white leaders, black and white female judges, motivated to crimes with child offenders and to pretend others simultaneously because of how they are involved with needing to hide live aggressions. They use crime methods of pretending to be against, pretending to perceive prejudice. There are roles as tools. Anyone who speaks for color, incapable of defending what they say so far and of affording the short words, using proper truth treatments towards that, from protracting, so they self-value and need and force, trick, hurt, persuade, as a breaching method maintains the outcome. Same sick uses, even if sickly distinctly. Same, also non-distinctly, same sick uses of each identity ground location, of each standing memory nature as only allowed to be made. Victim predator. You free campus now. You respond for Weathersfield campuses too. That's part of the evidence. The courts and prosecutors in the background acting and lying to family members. They did that for the last 5 years. These are the same people involved intercities each year since the World Trade Center attack, fabricating audio and video. These are the same people involved with predicate acts with the investigators of that. Hartford Hospital's roles with that. You watch your goddamn mouths if you fucking want to put military, motherfucker. Don't fucking pretend. I don't know whoever the fuck you are. Get me a motherfucking response. You guys talking about war. You're talking about pretending to be about All you guys pretend. It is too long. You've been in collusion with them too. Identity theft fraud, creating little fake instances and then exploiting that later, sequence shifts. And with the people next to the campuses like this Justin Levinskis. I don't know his brother's name. I don't know his father and mother's name. They're recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with wire crimes, involved with drugs crimes with kids, sexually natured crimes, identity thefts and frauds, for how they use the boys and girls, for tricks they use that everyone missed, because of how they're being exploited by what doesn't care about any country. It is fluent through our countries, not through the methods and motivations, natures, needs, interests realized. This was sophistication before any of those victim predator private criminal enterprises and overt criminal enterprises only capable of being. Those are tools that are where the syntax, fact-cheaping nature of the identity ground locations can't defend themselves and afford proper responses to which are actually inseparable from all the instances on the campuses, off of them, and being referenced by the people when they're on off those campuses being hurt by that. Fake branches of government, only capable of being live progressions right back to, as victim predators though, being and having been employed that way. So there are people associated with the Schedule family, involved with identity thefts and frauds, also with others on that street where Joe DeMoro lives, and right down the street and around the little corner there was where that Kerr family lives. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people I do and don't know the names of from my grade, involved with predicate acts, with databases, with federal criminal co-defendants or former director of the FBI, and with himself and with his lawyer, involved with exploitations of that through time, that are also on-off campuses connected, on-off the locations around the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices. Now, the only reason they get away with this is because of the method they have with the child campuses that they use. These campuses were set up for this. It's a method where they make people, they give people no means to counter what they're saying and what they're doing too, because it's facilitated and maintained from off campuses and through other motivations, natures, needs, interests, real, but also made up. So they have, I think Frank Natal is his name, associated with Victor Santos, people associated with DACA, and all along roads and routes, involved with other countries like Russians, Asian countries, and people with the intelligence community that are criminally foreign influence roles with that method that uses those identity ground locations, that uses them pretending to be American by countering other nations, by making peace with other nations, by using their identities as their fact-cheaping nature, by going back to their homes, using other people's names. He said, she said. That where that is tactically, criminally foreign influence of being and having been employed that. Everyone screening it, pretending other. Victim reactions, only allowed, capable of being. We have to be able to counter how, since I was a kid, people from Central Connecticut State University, I have sense and sensibilities, have their neighbors, their family members, forced to roles with sequence shifts, with our directors, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the media and the investigators, fabricating audio and video and lying about what I said to you. Every year since the World Trade Center attack, they've been fabricating audio and video into databases, as the people involved with predicate acts, with the investigators of that. Know how they made torture legalized. You guys are sick, fact-cheap in nature. You stand down, punks. Don't pretend to be about integrity or that you could speak about women's rights. Respond for this, your military families. They used my name in the past related to this, because these are be the involved ones with the judges, and the aggressions and the non-aggressions are evidence. So I need you have to make an opinion about this, but you're not going to be able to do it with the punk tricks, because that's evidence. And so when I yell, you're going to have to tell about it in sequence. And you're going to have to say sorry to the Attorney General. And you're going to have to admit the roles with the people with the church, the St. Anthony's Church, associated with this Kerr family, associated with other church locations, associated also with the Perron family, with the Department of Transportation, Department of Motor Vehicles, also with a whole bunch of police forms, foreign and domestic, and people associated with them, with predicate acts, with overt criminal enterprise, undercover ones, and people with programs with CCSU, with police forms. Whole bunch of names, where they also have the crime method as evidence of them name stacking, tied to their uses of the instances creation, that are where the instances are being used in the furtherance of illusions related to where they had to hide roles with predicate acts, with databases, and with communications, and falsified police reports, and cases criminally before that, and body dumping spots, uses of overt criminal enterprises, not as defined by them, but as defined by actually recorded predicate acts rules. See, they were grouping people as witches with witch trials. It is most probable, if you're telling American history, right, you have to assume, you have to demonstrate that it is most practical to convict, to opine, or to theorize, that and how witch trials were involved with that, and how they made people need to counter predicate acts. The real causes of predicate acts, not knowing how to, as syntax nature. The real causes of negative value nature, progressions, acts natures, like criminal insidiousness natures. Wrongdoers, wrongdoing. And they would blame them on other things, others themselves wrongly, and then defend that. Need to hide proofs of that, while simultaneously need to pretend to be integrity, while hundreds of nations at once are doing that. More and more manifest as locations, areas, and states. More and more insidious / overt natures of criminal insidious natures of positive and of negative treatments, of positive and negative, and of other people's names, and of sequence, and of instances, what they mean, of perception, sick. Oh, but this is what we learned in class in 1920, and this is Elizabeth Stanton, and she moved for this, for the woman, and all because the blacks, they wouldn't allow them to vote. So with the women, well, with these rights, see how these rights are tactically, sickly, distinctly victims? Humanity. That's simultaneously admitting that the Constitution was abridged. That's simultaneously self-valuing how it was abridged, and that was being maintained, blamed on other things, others themselves. While I don't care if you guys are the relatives of our founding parents. They didn't have free speech. And they left us proofs of it. And you guys lost it. Because you came through tactically, criminally foreign influenced identity ground locations. Then further, maintain victim reactions to it on campuses, on database relationships simultaneously. Then kept needing to hide live aggressions from that. Then self-valuing roles with all identity ground locations already set up for methods of that. So whether it's Connecticut news agencies played softball together, and they know that they have investigators and vetting identities that are involved with predicate acts, methods with them, where everyone forces people to speak through other people, even though they know that they're supposed to follow mandated law. If people ask to report specific crime acts, abuses of kids, they're supposed to report it. Instead, they attach me and my family and other kids to fake locations, fake ties to doctors, fake ties to mental diagnosis, fake ties to medications. They're discrediting people behind our backs and to the other sex specifically, because they're controlling positive and negative, because they're controlling identity ground locations, not just elections. This is way worse than elections, frauds, theft. This is identity thefts and frauds. This is worse than just extortion. These are a whole bunch of methods too. Denying, in other words, then well, go get a job. That's my job. Now pick one name and sequence into branch. Governor Malloy, please do what's right. Please get the judges who denies this in the background on paper. Don't be a coward where it counts. You have people that sacrifice their lives for you guys. And you guys stay cowards where it counts, where we are fact-shaping nature. Like that, you could end wars. But you'd rather be punks. Because the way you guys are victim predators. Not you personally, Governor Laban and Malloy. I don't know you either. But I know that, what I do know you. You recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed cover-ups of roles with the principal sex offenders campus, and further recorded roles and uses of upskirts pictures, and involved, since before that, the rape threats of New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with falsified police reports that involve a whole bunch of different departments and their family members. Also, forging names and switching departments, intercities. That's also with people with the name McGee on 2 different falsified police reports. Three times they forced me for mental evaluation because I had to raise my voice and I had to force people to call the police, and they didn't want to do it without me telling them why. Because I knew I was going to have, that's how you can't record the police. But where you know they're going to have a crime, and if you know they're going to record themselves doing it, you could do that. And so I did that. And they also criminally prevent people the right to remain silent. And they also criminally pretend that is because people are uncooperative. And they also simultaneously, if you speak, they pretend to perceive things wrong. That's also recorded. So you have to follow mandated law. They also, the federal judges at Fox News, they delay. When people ask, well, you guys aren't following mandated law on time. You guys are saying that you guys provide us with writing, but you don't. And so they're pretending they provide writing, but they don't. And they sequence shifts. They keep exceptions in exception to pretend other. But while simultaneously preventing people from demonstrating those exceptions in exception nature and demonstration of the same thing. Boxing. You don't have one identity of a law that is capable of speaking for you, America. Follow mandated law for them. And pick one name and sequence and just start going bang, bang, bang. Write bang, bang, bang in the comments. If I post this link, and if God, please, will someone watch my videos? Have you not seen? Respond to those things and respond to the phones. They attach the family members to fake communications with themselves and others when they try to report specific acts, and they pretend they don't understand people. They pretend people make allegations while they are making allegations against people outside of courts and inside of courts criminally, fabricating audio and video. It's also how they have the neighbors of everyone that works for the courts and are people tied to them involved with that method, has everyone speaking through others and timed. And they have crazy things in there. So the sensibility like that, or whatever they are, it affected They have that method that makes instances. So they can't afford to have discerned how the identity of value/value progression has relationships to instances with computers because of how they have all positions of integrity, self-valued, already having been used, ever have been roles with the use of instances per a method that creates forced communications between people, and or forced, in other words, fate, not communication, forced appearance of communications. An instance where the courts and the other countries and the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones are kept needing to hide the same sequences, finite, active, progressive lives together, and the military and their neighbors. Now there are people that live on the street next to the front door of the Schedule family involved with the military, with the identity thefts and frauds, and with the other boyfriends of a Sandra Spada, or her sister, Antonetta Spada, rather, who I barely know, who are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed, involved with foreign and domestic medical families as victims, and former director of the FBI and judges, prosecutors, and people associated with fire departments, and with the end of the Berlin Turnpike. There's three spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. There are people involved with identity thefts, frauds, that are also falsified police reports roles. Were also recorded remote uses of investigations and investigators, and people associated with Trinity College predicate acts and CCSU predicate acts, and those with child campuses that are connected to that. Note them as illusions, predicate acts. And please get the judges from switching names and forging names, pretending passions and emotions too, because that's also evidence, because that was also in conjunction with others with the exploitation of that in layers.